What's up, everybody? Well, today I'm here to bring to you another vacuum that is in my vacuum collection, and this time it is yet another Oreck. What I have is a very interesting Oreck in my collection, and this is something I basically did as kind of a little passion project. So what I have for your viewing pleasure today is another edition of, in my video series, the Restomod, which I figured I would go ahead and include this in because nothing about this vacuum is original. What I have is an Oreck XL Graphite Throwback Edition. So basically, how this came to be, mostly for when I bought this very vacuum on eBay that was listed for parts or repair. And me, being that I'm so passionate about vacuums and fixing, collecting, restoring, and eventually selling them, is basically one of my biggest passions on the side, while I still work my 9-to-5s, is I was insistent on fixing this thing. And the main problem that it had with it was the zipper on the outer bag was broken. And I tried to unjam it because when I first got it, it just would not unzip. And unfortunately, I wound up breaking the zipper off of that thing. With no other options, I had to cut the outer bag open just to get it off the vacuum. Thankfully, I was able to save things like the bag dock and stuff, but this unfortunately needed an outer bag. And unfortunately, at the time, I could not find a replacement for an actual graphite machine. And none of them were for sale on eBay at the time. The only one that was for sale was this old style outer bag that was meant for an older XL IntelliShield style machine. As you can see, it's got the white pinstriping on it. So I figured, you know what? It is almost color matching to the machine. Kind of fits pretty well with how it's on there. So I figured, why not make this kind of a throwback edition? Being that it has the old style outer bag with the new style hood assembly that Oreck has done for their classic XLs at the time. So basically, I cobbled this all together and I made an Oreck XL Graphite Throwback. So, now that that's all out of the way, let's go ahead and give a walkthrough of the machine. So this has the newer style for the helping hand handle. As you can see, it's a little bit more ergonomic. I kind of like the old style a little bit better. Particularly for that it's not super thick towards the front like this one is. I'm not really a fan of that. What I do like is that they kind of revised the power cord assembly, at least the upper cord hook, so it's not easy to break compared to the original. But I'm not a fan of how it wraps on top of the handle instead of like in a separate like hook section on the back of the handle, which I honestly would have liked a little bit better. But to each his own. But this one does have the 2-speed switch function. So you have low for low pile area rugs or bare floors, and high speed for a regular carpet. And as we move along down here to the non-original outer bag on it, this is from a later XL IntelliShield model, so it has this nice white pinstriping on the front that almost look like neon white colors that you would see on street sides. Looks very nice, and I like it that it has that old school diagonal Oreck lettering and the old XL logo down here. This is one of the later styles that doesn't say IntelliShield on it. Instead, it just says Extended Life, which I kind of think fits this vacuum a little bit better than IntelliShield. So anyway, let's go ahead and unzip this guy. to show you the inner bag. Typical Oreck CC bag setup on this. That is attached by a little bag docking system that the vacuum sits on. And how it works is when the bag is on, there's a little part of the bag collar that hooks into this latch down here when you're using it. And basically what that's there for is when you take out the outer bag after it's full, it'll grab onto that latch and it will actually pull a little trap door that sits inside the bag collar that seals up the opening to the bag so that dust doesn't spew back into the air, which I find is a very clever design on Oreck's part for developing this. So there's nothing more annoying than when you have to empty the bag out and when you're trying to get the bag off the machine, dust can sometimes tend to escape back into the air. So I applaud Oreck for making bag changes convenient and sanitary. So when you put it back, you got to make sure this thing latches in place. And you go ahead and zip your bag up, and then you're good to go. So as you can see down here, it does have the newer hood design, which definitely looks nice and more stylistic than the original. It's a lot more sleek in design than the straight rectangular style, with a lot of sharp edges and curves. I do like the headlight lens design on this. And you still have your belt access door right here on the side. Very typical for an Oreck to make belt changes super easy and simple. You just simply unscrew that, and then this section will slide forward so you can better change your belt, which is much more convenient than having to take the whole bottom plate off just to get access to your belt. So now let's go ahead and show you the underside of the machine. You will notice the bottom base plate is a little bit different. I actually ended up putting this from an older XL, basically to show that these older style base plates will fit the newer Orecks. Even though not too many people like these older styles with the small wheels by the brushes, they mostly like the big wheels behind the brush roll because it makes it much easier to use this on bare floors with that. But that is nice that even the older style base plate can fit. As you can see, this particular design still has its original ingest bars. They are a little bit loose over time, but they still work pretty good. I'm actually thinking about deleting these one of these days because they rattle about so much. But they're not super noticeable when you're actually using the machine, surprisingly. But I may think about deleting them to avoid it altogether. But also, as you can see, I did put in a brand new brush roll in it, as typical with any classic Oreck XL I get. The bristles are pretty soft, which is one thing to point out. It is not the stiffest thing in the world, so don't expect miracle cleaning performance out of this. Because the bristles are so tough, the agitation of the brush roll is not going to be very good. But if there's one thing I do say that's redeemable about this brush roll, is how very dense the bristles are. They definitely are very, very dense. So this definitely does make up for some lost performance. Definitely does good at picking up things like pet hair and a bunch of other stubborn dirt, especially anything surface debris. But in certain piles of carpet, this actually does pretty good on. But if you have super deep pile, I wouldn't suggest, or I wouldn't expect miracle cleaning performance out of it because it's so soft. But also the bristles do form a chevron pattern, so they funnel all of the dirt that gets picked up into the suction path down below. You have rubber coated wheels on the bottom, as well as a little rubber squeegee right here. As you can see, this one's still intact. So you could better use this to clean on bare floors. And now we'll go ahead and flip this thing up and show you the model number to the cleaner. This is Oreck cleaner model U4300H2BS. 120 volts, 60 hertz, 4 amps, so not the biggest motor in the world, but definitely enough to get the job done. And the serial date for this, if I'm reading this correctly, I think this was made somewhere in 2013. And I think this was made just before Tektronix Industries, or TTI for short, actually purchased Oreck. So that's one nice to see that this is a pre-TTI machine made by the Oreck Company in Cookeville, Tennessee, for household use only. You have a little storage behind the outer bag. And so with that, let's go ahead and release the cord to give you a running demo of this. Now let's go ahead and plug this guy in. One thing I do not like about these later style plugs is Oreck, for whatever reason, decided to flip-flop the connection. So now it has to go in the opposite way, with the clip here that hooks onto the cord when it's wrapped up is facing the other way now. Something that took me some getting used to when I bought one of these newer Orecks compared to the old ones that didn't do that. But that's just something to point out. Not a major deal, but minor nuisance. And so let's go ahead and turn this thing on and give you a demo of it running. Now, typical Oreck fashion, this thing is pretty loud when it's running, so headphone users or those who have sensitive hearing, I would advise turning down your volume for this portion of the video. So we'll go ahead and start this thing on low speed, and then we will work it up to high speed. There's low speed. Now here is high speed. Definitely may not be the most powerful thing, but it gets the job done. Definitely fun to use over a Dyson, in my honest opinion. Well, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this video on the Oreck XL Graphite Throwback. Be sure and stay tuned, and don't forget to like, rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.